wow, society appears to me changed a lot. Very different.
Today on Eye for Iran, we're looking at Iran through three very different but deeply connected lenses: history, culture, and a society that some say is transforming in real time. My first guest, Ambassador John Limbert, was among the American diplomats taken hostage in 1979. We'll talk about what he witnessed in those early revolutionary days, how he views Iran now, and why the hostility between Washington and Tehran has endured longer than the Cold War. Then I'm joined by Siavash Rokni, a researcher, lecturer, artist, and postdoctoral fellow at McGill University. He studies Iranian youth, culture, popular music, and the communication dynamics of social movements. We'll unpack the controversy over Shervin Hajipour's licensed album, what the backlash reveals about Iranian society, and explore the rise of digital entertainment shows, including BaZia, that are reshaping Iran's rap scene.
It's a public relations performance, and it is fooling a lot of people. And we need to stop being fooled by it.
And finally, journalist and analyst Omid Memarian joins me to examine what appears to be a shift in Iran's public life. Now, we're seeing concerts, jazz festivals, and underground raves, scenes that suggest a more open cultural atmosphere. But at the same time, there are arrests, repression, and a persistent climate of fear. So the real question is, are these cultural openings signs of genuine social change, or are they a controlled ruse?
This movement has definitely political implications. Those who think that it's not going to end up in political change, they are absolutely wrong.
I'm Negar Moshahedi, and this is Eye for Iran. Ambassador Limbert, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Negar. It's my pleasure.
Likewise, Ambassador, Iran's economy is collapsing again, the currency falling to record lows. But I just wanted to start somewhere else with you, because this week, President Donald Trump repeated a line that we have heard before from him: Iran is a bully no more. You've watched U.S.-Iran relations for, nearly half a century. Do you agree with that characterization?
Um, well, let me say, I have followed U.S.-Iran relations with a great deal of sadness, really, over the last 40 some years. And I'm very, one thing I've learned, or two things I've learned, I guess. One is that I've been wrong a lot. My ability to predict has been very poor, very poor. And second, I'm very wary of statements like "no more." Because just as soon as you say no more, it turns out that there is more. And I mean, we know from we know from history. I mean, I was in Tehran in the summer of 1979, and working assigned to the U.S. embassy there, and this was 6-7 months after the revolution, and the question on everyone's mind was, in Persian, was "Anha kemira."
It still is, isn't it?
Still is. Okay, we're 45 years later, and they're still here, When are they when are they leaving? So again, I wouldn't make a statement like that. I'm not the president of the United States, however, and he can make the statements as he wants. As I think we've learned pretty well, he will say what he wants, and our foreign policy seems to be not the result of any thought-out process, but basically whatever occurs to our president at any particular time.
And so you mentioned you were in Iran in 1979. Tell us about what happened to you during the revolution, or the kind of the
Well,
first years of the revolution.
it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. I'd been in the Foreign Service about 6-7 years, and I went to Tehran I arrived in August of 79. So that was about and then of course 2 months later, in October, President Carter decided that he would admit the deposed Shah to the United States for medical treatment. At that point, we knew we were finished. at the embassy, one way or another.
Interesting.
We were finished, and it was just a matter of waiting for the axe to fall, and it did on Bon or November 4th of that year. And I think people know the history. I think everyone listening knows the history pretty well. That what started out, or what was supposed to be a 1970s style student sit-in, turned into an international melodrama, international tragedy that cost President Carter his presidency, that kept me and my colleagues captive for 14 months, and has
Wow.
cast a shadow over U.S.-Iranian relations for the past 46 years, a shadow that remains today, and has brought unimaginable misery to our Iranian friends. You mentioned the economy. You mentioned the currency. Those are just two. Those are just two things. So it has not been for those of us with attachments to Iran, as I have many friends and family members. It's been a very difficult 5 decades.
So you mentioned the decision that Carter made in admitting the deposed Shah for cancer treatment and then you said that's when we knew at the embassy we were done. Do you think if that decision hadn't been made, that what happened next wouldn't have occurred for you and your colleagues? Looking
Good
back?
question. Good question. Endless. We speculate about this endlessly. Many people have asked that question, and it's a legitimate question, because it's very the atmosphere was very charged at that time. I mean, even without the admission of the Shah, there were very loud voices in Tehran. I remember this very well. There were very loud voices in Tehran, which were beating an anti-American drum. And these were extremists on the left and extremists on the right. It was the Tudeh party, the various leftist groups, in a kind of tacit alliance with extremists on the right, extreme religious groups, and they were in a competition to see how anti-American they should be. So if it hadn't been the admission of the Shah, there might have been something
Else it would have
else.
triggered it, right?
There could have been something else, but we don't know. We don't know. I mean, the political situation then was still fluid. I mean, there was relative, compared to what came later, there was still relative freedom. I mean, many political groups were operating, left, right, center, all kinds. The news was not so heavily censored as it would be later. But the admission of the Shah, the takeover of the embassy, of course, gave the extremists on left and right perfect opportunity they needed to mobilize and get rid of people in the middle, people who were calling for a democratic, pluralistic, open society. People on the left hated them. People on the right hated them. Well, now they could be tainted as pro-American, and so the decision to admit the Shah, among its other effects, was to crush any hope that Iran would evolve toward a more democratic and open system.
And so when you think back to your days in captivity, Ambassador, what do you remember most about the revolutionaries that you encountered? And did you sense, and you mentioned right, left, center, and a certain group hijacking the revolution, did you see any more competing ideological currents, including what later became the reformist movement? I'm interested to know what you think about the reformist movement, even today in Iran.
Well, it was interesting to me that a number of the most vocal and articulate reformists were our former hosts at the
This is what you call them.
American Embassy. They were the mehmandar, if you want to call them, of the embassy. And when I first encountered that, I was reminded there's a famous line from Obeid Zakani. If you're familiar with Musha Gorbe, he says, how does he put it? He says, "Mojdagani ke Gorbe ta'ib shod, albedo zahido musalmana." And that was reminded me of that. These reformists, no, they and until they can come around, some of those powerful words in English are, boy, I screwed up.
How did they treat you?
Not
Those
very well.
particular. Yeah.
Not very well. I mean, there's a narrative out there that we were treated well, but we were not. I was
No, of course not.
14 months. I was there 9 months. I was in solitary.
I'm sorry to hear
Well, it's
this.
okay. Well, I mean, it's what, as I say, what happened to me was bad, but we can sit here and talk about it. So that's not too bad. That's okay. That's okay. But what happened to you and what happened to our Iranian friends, was 100 times worse. What they've had to suffer.
And so, where do you see Iran right now, like in terms of what you saw at the time of the revolution and these past, 5 decades? Has anything changed fundamentally? Are they the same? How do you see things right now?
Well, it's sort of I see two competing here. I mean, I haven't been there for 45 years, not by choice, but I guess I'm not welcome. Um, not for a while. I'd love to go. I'd love to go back. But so, people tell me, friends who go and come, go and come, say it's, some things, the underlying culture remains the same. People are, warm, friendly, outgoing, curious, creative, as they always have, as they always have been. On the same time, a lot of things, physically have changed. It's just a very different country, and there's obviously a huge generational change. I mean, people who, the people who took us, who called themselves the student followers, are now grandparents. One would hope becoming a grandparent would also bring wisdom. And maybe it has in some in some cases. But I said so it's hard to say. On the other hand, if you look at the government, the ruling apparatus, it's been remarkable. It's basically stayed the same. The same people. Look at the people who've been in power, who took power in 1979. The associates of Khomeini, the close, mostly clerical mostly religious associates of Khomeini, people, names like Mahdavi Kani, and Mesbah Yazdi, and these people like that, people like this, which we didn't know, people who knew about these people at the time, but they took power in 79, and they've held it. They've held it ever since. They or their followers, because obviously some of them died. Some of them died. Many of them have passed away. But some are still around. But that same group that took power in 79, in those days under the rubric of the Islamic Republican Party, are still around. I mean, they've changed. They've changed positions. They've taken new positions, but they're the same little men's club, elite men's club, has run the country.
Yeah,
and they're still, they or their followers. Most of them are still around. On the other hand, the society appears to me changed a lot. Very different. First of all, look at the literacy rate. When we were there, it was about 50%. Now it's well over, what is it, 95, 96?
they're very educated. That's an interesting
Very
factor to
educated.
take into consideration.
These everywhere. I mean, it's small towns. I was in communication with someone who teaches at the University of Yasuj. When I was there, Yasuj was the Back of Beyond, Back of Beyond. If anyone had heard of it, I mean, most people said,
Wouldn't have heard of that small
never
town.
heard
Yeah.
of it. But there's a university then there now. I remember visiting 50, 60 years ago, 55, visiting DAWN Omid in Fars. It was a dead town. There was nobody there. Everybody with any initiative had left, had gone either they'd gone to Shiraz, or they'd gone to the Gulf states, or they'd gone to Tehran. Someplace. Now there's a university there. I'm told it's these places are thriving. And I know you were talking with your earlier guest about culture. Culture is amazing. I mean, look at the films that are coming out of Iran. Films that are coming out of Iran. Look at the
Art
creative.
scene, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's amazing.
sort
You've
of
got two different
going in,
Irans.
it's going in both directions
Yeah.
in a way. It's going in both directions at the same time.
Yeah, like you said, you've got, this incredible art scene, you have development, education like we've never seen before, enrollment of women, even
Exactly.
leading businesses. But then at the same time, you've got, electricity shortages, lack of water, environmental problems, pollution. You can't even breathe when you go outside. There's hazard warnings in some areas where you can't step outside and walk in Tehran and other major cities, and the collapse of the real and the economic pressure. So where do you see the Islamic Republic headed then, if you've got these two versions of Iran playing out at the exact same time? What does this mean for you?
Yeah. Again, I don't know, but you mentioned the currency. I'll just tell you a story that affects me personally. When I got married in Iran, this was now almost 60 years ago. The mehri, you part of the contract is the mehriye, the security for the wife. In those days, the mehriye was equivalent to $43,000. But my wife forgot to put an inflation clause in the contract, so now it's about $4.
That's hilarious. Terribly sad, but yeah.
She forgot. I think if she had to do it over again, she would have either insisted in gold, certain amount in gold, or put an inflation clause in there. Anyway, so that that will tell you. But one of the things you've seen, which is in this course of Iranian history, and my own specialty field is history. So you'll forgive me, because historians always like to say go back to the beginning. But I won't do that. I won't, because in Iran, when you say go back to the beginning, you go back to Cyrus the Great, and then
As one
get
would.
into a whole nother world. I won't do that. But one thing I can recall about Iran in those days there were difficulties, there were problems, but for the most part, Iranians did not leave. They did not emigrate. They did not.
Whole different story now.
Maybe they did ones or twos. Some of the religious minorities did. They
Persecution, of
felt
course, yeah.
pressure, but for the most part, they did not. They did not. They stayed. They stayed, and if they went abroad to study, they would come back. Most people would come back. Now, look at the United States. Look at Europe. Look at yourself. Look at how. I don't know your own story, but it's so many friends. Of course, in a very selfish way, other countries like the U.S. have benefited from this, and we have people in the. I mean, every time I watch a movie or a TV show, I watch the credits and see how many Iranian names there are. People
That's smart.
involved
That's a good idea.
making movies and television shows, in the medical field, in business, in science, in computers, in sports. I mean, it's just amazing. But that's new. That historically, that rarely happened with Iran, with Iranians, unlike, say, Lebanese people, for example, but the attachment was there. The other part of it, there was a push factor in the sense that I think the new government wanted these people to go. because if they stayed, they would ask questions. They would ask inconvenient questions like, what does this makes no sense? Why are you doing this? So rather than have them sit around and, as they say, grumble a lot.
Whine and complain, yeah.
Pardon?
Whine and complain, yeah, exactly.
Just go, just whine it instead of whining and complaining. Just go. And I remember hearing that in '79. I think it was Khomeini himself said, "The doors are open. If people aren't happy, they should leave." And I think a lot of people took him up on the offer. And it was the backbone of the society. It was the educated people, the middle class people, the talented people who left. But on the other hand, those who stayed behind, doing some amazing, also showing absolutely amazing creativity. So you have a society that is creative, that is innovative, that is in touch, that is internet savvy, that is culturally savvy. And then you have a state or a government that is somehow stuck in the Middle Ages. How long that can last, I don't know. I don't think it can last forever, but I don't know how long. I don't know how long. And I'm not among those who are going to say, the whole place is going to collapse in a month, 2 months, a year, whatever. The other thing is, if it does collapse, experience should teach us one thing. It's that if there's no guarantee things are going to be any better.
That's true. Yeah, you never know, right?
And we ought to have learned that from what happened in '79 and '80.
Well, definitely. Well, thank you so much. That's Ambassador John Limbert. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us and for your perspective and your insight.
Well, thank you, Nagar. It's always good talking. It's always good talking to you. You see, if you ask me these questions, get me wound up, I do keep going.
No, you're incredible. Thank you again.
People say that I am literally and figuratively married to my subject.
My next guest, Siavash Rokni, is a researcher, lecturer, artist, and a postdoctoral fellow at McGill University whose work focuses on Iranian youth culture, popular music, and the communication dynamics of social movements. Siavash, and first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Negarjan.
Siavash, at the very moment Iran's economy is collapsing, we're seeing a different narrative also unfold. Rappers suddenly being allowed to release albums, and Shervin Hajipour, the voice behind the Women Life Freedom Movement, the song BaZia, which became the anthem for that movement, granted a full license for his first full album, if you will. This has sparked an enormous backlash online, from accusations of betrayal to obvious arguments of survival. Before we get to that, Siavash John, I want to start with Iran's expanding digital entertainment space, political talk shows, podcasts. There's online programs like, for example, BaZia. For viewers who are unfamiliar with that program, tell us about that and why has it become so important and integral to Iran's rap scene?
So, when you talk about that, is specifically we need to talk about two things. The actors in the Iranian radio and television who decided to go solo and work independently, versus the programs that are created as in terms of video streaming. So kind of websites similar to Netflix, but the Iranian version. Those programs, so for example, the political satire program by Amir Hossein, I forgot his last name. That program is, on an official streaming website that is that is organized and run, or that is, that is controlled and managed by the Iranian national TV and radio, so it's sponsored by Seda Sima. That's one part. BaZia is a program that Zia, this host for the IRIB, went solo and went to Turkey and started doing programs. Now, the thing with
And he's not
Zia,
connected to the state, Sadoi Sima or the state.
technically speaking, this is
Okay.
the challenge. This is the challenge because technically speaking, Zia is no longer connected to the system. You know, he's going solo and everything. But the way he chooses his guests and the way he has kind of like made a sort of planning based on the invitation of his guests and everything shows that there is a connection to Iran, and he is actually planning to release a program called Gang. Now, the reason why I say it's planned is because in about 2-3 months ago, when he interviewed Shayeh, at some point about 50 minutes into the program, he precisely asked
And who is
Shayeh.
Shayeh, for those who don't know?
Shayeh is a rapper. Is one of the rappers who is kind of thought of as he will probably get permission to release a rap album. This has not been confirmed. You know, it's in the hearsays and everything. But in that program, Zia asks Shayeh, I'm going to ask you to define certain terminologies. And the first terminology that he asked to be defined was gang. And Shayeh responded, gang is not, you know, like having a knife and, you know, frowning. It's about buying your sister a cell phone. Or I'm serious. This is the exact quote. I remember this. It was very memorable for me for that specific response. It's about buying your sister a cell phone, taking your family out for dinner. Now, few months later, you know, like and Shayeh's, you know, interview was one. Then he interviewed Puri, who has released songs that are very connected to the system. Then he interviewed Dorchi and Chersi, and then he actually more rappers, and he actually invited Shayeh, another rapper, this fifth generation rapper. He's about, I think, 16, 17-year-old rapper, to perform a kind of like a improv where Shayeh, you know, is saying, oh, you know, like why do I have to sing here? I want to sing in my own country, etc., etc., etc. And then he invited a producer, so a person who actually funds artists in Iran to, you know, to release albums. And this person, I have his name, or I'm going to come back to it. So this person, he said that, oh yeah, you know, like there is an economic advantage to bringing rap back, and besides that, we can control the content, etc., etc. And the whole narrative of Zia in that show, you know, in all the interviews that he's done, is one, rappers are normal, just like pop stars. Two, they've done bad things and they regret it, and they want to, you know, like they're changing now. So, for example, Shayeh talks about Narcotics Anonymous and how in parks there are Narcotics Anonymous, and, you know, like he invites, you know, young people. Yeah.
Very forward.
Then very forward, yes. Then he says, you know, like that I perform shows outside of Iran, but I want to perform inside of Iran. And then he talks about the economy of it. Now, all of this, you know, it's there, you know, it's not a proof that that rap is becoming legal or anything. But then you have the release of a video of you know, like of a performance being shot for a TV series. And then the news comes out that Zia is working on a program for streaming services called, and the program is called Gang. So you see how the narrative comes, you know, the narrative comes very slowly. So this is one part of it. The other part of it is, you know, that you know, the police arrested several rappers, and then after their arrest, they come out and they work with this producer who's connected to the system, and they release, they do what they call feats. So feat means, like releasing collaborative uh, songs with artists that are, like pop artists. So there's another part, this kind of the aesthetic normalization,
So why are they doing this? So why normalize it? Why promote it? Even a state official like or Islamic Republic official like Ghalibaf was saying, how important rap is. So why this emphasis on rap and normalization now?
Um, the the story goes back to Khatami era and this idea of reconciliation with people, with the reconciliation with the nation. Okay, so what is reconciliation with the nation? You start freeing some, kind of like tying some cultural restrictions and everything, and then you kind of reconcile with the people in order to be able to tell them there is possibility for change. Now, this is kind of like very very bizarre, giving hope to the nation, and that can be taken away very easily
What do you mean
the
by tell us
moment.
bizarre giving hope? Tell us an interesting way to phrase it. Tell us what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is that it's dishonest. It's very dishonest, and the reason that this is happening this time, one side of it is moral. They're like, okay, morally we want to have control over rap, and not only in terms of the rap content, but also in terms of the rap aesthetic. There's 5 generations of rap. Rap has been around in Iran since 2001 or 2000, and in this 5 generation they have innovated in many ways. They have innovated different ways of doing DIY to make money. So there are rappers that make money that have, that are disconnected from the system. They have figured out ways to expand. So Christopher Small talks about this idea of musicking. So thinking of music as a verb, and rap in Iran has thought of music as a verb. So think of this as this way, and then think of it as kind of, like taking this 25 years of work and just making money out of it. And why? Because there is, a core uh, uh, number of producers in Iran who want to legalize rap to make money out of it, because they know that they can't make money out of pop anymore if they want to attract younger generation. So that's one side of it. Um, the other side of it, so that side of it, I think, and I argue, is kind of like creating an oligarchical capitalism. So there's an oligarchical capitalism that functions in Iran with
Islamic
the
Republic.
purpose, huh?
Not an Islamic Republic.
It's in the Islamic Republic, but it's an oligarchical capitalism. The people who are running this oligarchical capitalism are connected to the Islamic Republic, but they don't necessarily, not all of them, they don't necessarily believe in the Islamic Republic. They just want to make cash out of it.
Yeah.
So
Opportunists.
they're opportunists, yeah, and they know, and then there are there's the other side of it. There's this, like hijacking the aesthetic of rap. So you have the example of Carnival, this streaming program that where Sina Sai wins the competition. It's a theater competition, and it's a musical competition, and he literally copies Lin-Manuel Miranda's aesthetic of Hamilton to create this historical musical with rap, like talking about Amir Kabir. And this hijacking of aesthetic is not only hijacking of aesthetic, but reinterpretation of the narratives in the history of Iran.
The way you phrase it. So essentially, it's about money, it's about control, and about knowing Gen Z and what they're interested in, and taking control of it by hijacking it. That's a really interesting way to put it. And why do you suppose now they're allowing for more licenses in Iran for musicians, such as now somebody like Shervin Hajipour, who was arrested, who was arguably the voice of the women life freedom movement with his song Baraya?
It's
Why
very
now?
easy. It's very easy to answer. Why do they have a program that that is a satire critique of the politics of Iran in a streaming website? Because they have to control both of the narratives. Because by doing that, they control the narrative in total. You know, it's not that they oppress people. It's not enough. The operation is short. They do it short. They put a lid on it, but the program starts after that.
So this
And
is
the
a smart way of oppressing people in some ways. It's effective,
yes,
more smart. Because I do on Instagram, I do follow. I enjoy his show. The streamer you're talking about, Amir Hossein Qiyasi, I believe his name is.
yes,
He's
Amir Hossein
hilarious.
Qiyasi. Thank you.
He's
Yes, absolutely.
hilarious. And I enjoy his program and some of the stuff I'm watching. And go, oh wow, they're allowed to talk about that, in Iran on television. But in some ways, doesn't it open the door as well,
What door?
unintentionally?
What door?
Well, there are some things
There.
that are discussed
Okay,
on that show that I wouldn't imagine you would be allowed to talk about in Iran.
but why do we have to have this idea that some door opens and now it's better?
No,
If you're
I'm not
talking
saying it's
about
better. No.
freedom, if
Yeah.
you're talking about freedom, freedom has a definition. You're free to express yourself respectfully by respecting the other people in terms of their like gender, sexual orientation, um, uh, the nationality, background,
Ethnic
etc.,
background,
etc.,
religion
etc.
background, everything. Yeah.
Yes, everything. Okay, religious respect, everything. This idea has been fed to us that if the government allows a little bit freedom, this is good, this is change. This has been happening since Khatami. When do we want to stop thinking of it this way? Yes, people, artists want to make money. Shervin Hajipour probably saw an advantage economically to actually make it in the system, and the system offers them things. It's not like that. Matin Dohanjere, a pop artist, went to Ershad and he actually took a video of the person in Ershad, where the person in Ershad is saying, what is he saying? He's saying, clean up your social media, make sure that it's like washed out of all the things that are not very cool. Then what does he say? Then rat your friends out, because that will be part of the deal
Terrible.
that we want to make. Okay,
Terrible.
this is a video that was released recently. Okay, and then what happens? Shervin Hajipour, a few weeks ago, comes in front of the camera and says, "Oh, I was gonna go to a sports club. I went inside of it. The owner of the sports club came to me and he said, you cannot be there because you're Shervin Hajipour." And everybody's like, "Oh, look at this poor human." And 2 weeks later, what happens? His album
Signs a
is
deal.
released.
Yeah.
Okay, but his album is released 2 weeks later. This is not a program of 2 weeks. This is a program of months. If you want to release your album, you need to either go through all these producers who are connected to Ershad, who
Of course,
can
it takes a long
tell
time.
you
Yeah, this is
tell
not
you
something
what to do,
simple.
and you pay them. This is the thing, is that one part of Ershad is pay to play. Okay, this is the problem, is that the one part of Ershad is like, okay, like we are going to check, everything in terms of morals and everything. But the other part of it is literally a noyau, a kind of like core group of organizations that take artists, get them to pay them, and they counsel them as to what to do, and then they go to Ershad and have
That's the
them
process. Yeah.
release their albums.
So then, what do you think of this backlash then towards him? It's been quite emotional.
Yes, let it be emotional. This is an emotional thing. This is not a joke. If his belief was Zan Zendegi Azadi, what he says at the very end of his lyrics, then doing this is a betrayal. This is a problem. Why is this a problem? because his name will be in history, and all the other rappers who are getting mujawez, their name will be in the history of rap, and but the thing is that some, some artists, they're not political, they're not social, etc., etc. They get their permission, and nobody goes and asks them, why did you go get permission? Nobody goes to Costa Quartet and says, why do you get permission from Irshad? Their Costa Quartet is a quartet diminished. It's a jazz quartet.
Jazz quartet. But what's the solution here, Siavash? Like you mentioned, about this kind of these small changes through shows like Amir Hossein Qiyasi and the licensing of rap and of Shervin Hajipour, et cetera, that these small changes are not real. It's just a lie. And it's going to set us back. And this has been going on since Khatami's time. It's just, we go into the same cycle over and over and over again. Then what is the solution? If there can't at this moment be a full sudden revolutionary change, what do you do? And do these small changes eventually lead to opening over time, or you don't see it that way at all? I'm just trying to get, all the different voices that I'm hearing out there that are for and against this.
The small changes comes from creating parallel economies within Iran and taking what rap has been doing for the past 25 years, studying it, understanding it, and applying it in other forms of artistic forms. Now, Cinéma Mustaqil, the independent cinema in Iran, is actually taking notes from rap and is doing the same thing. And this will continue. This is just the beginning of it. What needs to be happening is the creation of DIY and parallel economies. If you want Shervin Hajipour not to get a mujawez, create parallel economies for Shervin Hajipour to make money.
Exactly, or else he lives there. We don't. He needs to, he needs to make money. He needs to eat. He needs
yes, but so many other musicians, hip hopologists, made lots of money by using Instagram and social media and actually monetizing on his videos. He has million something followers. He actually, the fourth generation of rap is a very good case study of how this can be done.
Wow.
It can be done. Yeah, he has 1.2, 1.3 million followers on Instagram. That's massive.
It is.
You have that in Canada and everybody's like, oh, you're, something big. He has... I'm from Canada, as you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying?
Economies. Okay, I understand. No, it makes sense.
Economies. Yeah. Do it yourself. We're doing it. We don't have a name for it. Okay, here's the name for it. Do it yourself. DIY. The punks started it. It went out to different milieus. Now in fashion and everything, you see DIYs. Iranians are doing DIYs. They just have to organize it, and they have to create systematic ways of creating parallel economies so they can make money out without being connected to the system.
Yeah, for practicality. And I just wanted to go back, just as a conclusion, going back to that show that you mentioned, BaZia, which this individual, the host, is now in Turkey, like you said, but he's still connected to the apparatus in Iran. Well, why be in Turkey then? Is this their way of expansioning control in other countries? Is there something deeper going on here? Or is this just he just wants to live in Turkey and it's just no rhyme or reason?
Probably because, by going to Turkey, he can say that, oh, I'm in Turkey, so I can say things that I cannot say inside of Iran.
So more part of this play that you're talking about, this deception that you've described.
It's a damn performance, and it's very smart. It's a public relations performance. And it is fooling a lot of people, and we need to stop being fooled by it.
Any concluding or final remarks?
Shout out to all the rappers who are sticking out and continuing independently. I have been following this movement for a very long time. actually not very long time, recently, but I'm getting very into it, and I'm very, very proud of what they have done. This has been an impressive 2 years of actually understanding how beautiful and how much hardship they have gone through to get to where they are right now. And shout out to them. Continue what they're doing. Don't stop creating parallel economies, and don't give in to small little prizes that are put in front of you, and think of it long term. Those who know what I'm saying. There are rappers that are picking sides right now, and this juncture is very, very, and it is a very important juncture.
Well, thank you so much. And shout out to you, to Siavash Rokni, and for all that you do. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Negarjan.
Tehran today looks a lot different than it did 5 years ago. Street concerts, hard rock shows, jazz festivals, and a nightlife that seems almost impossible on paper when it comes to Iran. Yet this cultural opening is happening alongside continued arrests, a rise in executions, and a security apparatus that is still deeply repressive. Joining us now is Omid Memarian, a journalist, a senior Iran analyst at DAWN, and a human rights advocate from Iran who was in fact imprisoned for some time in Iran. He's joining us here to explain the contrast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, wonderful. So this political crackdown, Omid, you've got that on one hand, and then we have this apparent cultural opening on the other. Talk to us about that.
The loosening of social restrictions might have been highlighted more in the media in the past few months and on our social media, but it's been an ongoing trend underneath Iranian society for the past few years. There has been consistent pressure across the board. Multiple demographics have been pushing inch by inch, and many more have paid price for this. So it's not something new, but we see it more in the media. In my opinion, though, there is a tipping point here, and that's the killing of Mahsa Amini in 2022 and the nationwide protests that followed. Those protests sent shockwaves throughout the regime from top to the bottom. And they revealed the fragility of the whole repression machinery in Iran, a machinery that can maybe target a portion of the society, but is incapable of going to battle with the vast majority of the population, the Iranian people, particularly the younger generation. I think that's a very important point in understanding what's happening in Iran. And the regime understood that its repression machinery is worn out. After the protests, they figured that out, that it's worn out. And it's no longer capable of creating fear, terror, intimidation to the extent that they had in the early years of the revolution.
So, but why are we seeing more of it then on social media or in the media in general then, if it's not necessarily a new thing? Is it because there's more of occurrences of it, or?
Yes, I think what we have seen. I think we can add to what I said. Another tipping point in this process, and that's the 12-day war with Israel, which I think is it's a very significant moment in studying what is happening in Iran. People. I could say they are still in shock that about what happened, and that they were left out and they were left alone, and the regime could not protect them. I think that's created a huge vacuum and really emboldened many Iranians who, for many years, saw the regime create a very aggressive foreign policy apparatus, all these proxy groups, and claim that to secure your to keep you secure, we have created all this, and so you are safe within Iranian borders. And many people believe these slogans, but they figured that they are left alone, and I think that has a huge impact on them. And after the war, we see people are much more emboldened because they see the regime very weak, much weaker than in the past. And I think that's one of the reasons we see the exposure, like more exposure of these type of activities. But what has
That's
been
so
happening?
interesting.
What has been happening, I think it has been consistent. You can all these artists, all these people who are interested in certain type of lifestyle cannot come to life within like a few months. They existed, they lived,
Of course.
that's their lifestyle. But they are much more. They feel much more comfortable to.
There's more out in the open now than it
Exactly.
was before, that duality we would see in Iran. And already this week, Iran's judiciary chief said the current approach to hijab enforcement, which is that we've been seeing, at least in Tehran and some of the big cities, that they haven't been enforcing it, cannot continue. Do you see this as significant, or is that just a lot of talk and people still see the regime as quite weak?
I don't think this is very significant, but we have to remember that those who are in favor of repression and enforcing detailed social and lifestyle norms are part of a massive, expansive and expensive machine. These are the people who live their entire lives through this system. They have a status, they get paid. Some of them are retirees of this machine. And even if tomorrow the supreme leader decided to give up all the restrictions, the machine would resist to the teeth. So the monstrous bureaucracy that the regime has created is everything they have. It's their life, their identity, it's their paycheck, and their source of power. I think in general, that's how they feel powerful in the country, in the society, and overpower the rest of the population. So this is the final battle of the Islamic regime in their eyes. They see this is, if we lose this one, it's over, and their life as they remember, it's over. So they're fighting over to keep
And
that
the dogma.
Exactly. They want to keep that.
That's interesting, because so many Iranians are now rejecting that. But how widespread is this? I mean, you said that this is something that's been brewing for a number of years now. Is this something that happens in the big cities, or for people who are not very aware of Iran, is this happening in rural areas as well?
It's a very widespread movement. It's not just Tehran or big cities. What we are seeing is that people from Tehran to small cities and villages in the eastern or southern part of the country, they are very much connected. People wake up in the morning, get on social media, and if you're living in a village in somewhere, in a remote place in southern Iran or in a big city, your perception of life and a good life, freedom, equality, opportunities, these are your perceptions are not far from each other. So a young person in Shiraz or in Bandar Abbas or Khuzestan is not far from somebody in Tehran when it comes to expectations and definition of life and a good life and a prosperous life. So what we are seeing is that that throughout the country, people are voicing their demands, basically imposing their lifestyle to the system. So that's why it's very hard for the regime to stop what is happening inside the country.
There's no going back. There's no going back, is what you mean. That's it.
We have a massive explosion of expectations. We have a massive explosion of expectations inside the country. Young people, they know what they want. They know how people live in the neighboring countries, in the Persian Gulf countries, in Turkey, in other countries, and they know what they are facing inside the country: corruption.
Even in Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia, in other countries, they see that within this system, they will never have opportunities, and so the fight is between abandoning their future or fighting for what they want. And I think over the past years, we have seen that they are fighting for what they want.
when it comes to, we've been seeing reports of raves in mainstream media in Iran. And I remember, in 2006 when I was visiting Iran, there was some raves happening and mini raves, if you will. So people just getting together and music and that kind of stuff. But now we're seeing things on the scale, like we were talking about before recording, on the scale of Burning Man. Tell us about that.
You're right. What we're seeing is a new level. We are seeing it at a new scale. But yes, in the past years, we have seen young people going to remote places to have fun, to play music, to dance, to drink, to basically experience freedom. We have seen it in the past, but it was much more silent. It was not in the public face. It was not on social media. But what we are seeing with this generation is that not only they push their red lines, not only they they push the government back on some of these social restrictions, but also they try to show up. They want to scream and show how they live, and they want others to know their choices, about their choices.
And so when it comes to, concerts, festivals, all this public show of this, what does this say about where Iran is headed, in your view?
Um, I think the Iran is going through a very huge transformation. We are facing with a young generation that is very much frustrated with what is happening. They are young, and from the moment they open their eyes, they have seen restrictions, repression, corruption, lack of opportunities, and all these things. And the internet and social media, I think, has changed the equation dramatically for them. And so they see opportunities here, and they don't want to waste time. This is very different than my generation, the Khatami generation, the Hashemi generation. It's a much different generation. They are not going to let the government write their destiny. And I think that's what we are seeing, and that's why the government is very careful in dealing with this generation, because they know their determination is at the highest level. They are very much outnumbered, and their forces also have lost legitimacy, power, and determination. They even some of their forces, they understand this. They are not going to. They are not capable of stopping this generation. So what I see here is a massive movement that is come to the surface, that is coming to social media, and a part of that is, yes, the concerts, is the music, but I think it's much more deeper than this. If you go to the art scene, if you go to the design scene, to fashion, education, startups, many other fields that are active in Iran, you see an explosion in creativity, in pushing the boundaries, in ignoring what the government has pushed on them, and just living their lives the way they think there was no Islamic Republic. This is a very, very, I think, significant moment for the regime, that it has become completely irrelevant. And let's face what we are dealing with here. Iran's economy is in a very bad shape. The Iranians have faced years of sanctions, and then, yes, when it comes to Iran's infrastructure, problems are endless: electricity, water, energy, fuel, everything. But despite all these restrictions, all these problems, challenges, this new generation, and that has the support of the older generation, they are actually very hopeful in building their future. And I think that's the beautiful message we hear from Iran, that they are very hopeful about their future. And this future, for many that I have talked to, in that future, the Islamic Republic is something from the past.
And when you say something from the past, does that mean that this future that they're building for themselves would drive out the Islamic Republic when you say in the past, or would it keep that apparatus there with these social freedoms and social reforms, etc., but still have the, obviously the mindset of any authoritarian regime and cracking down on any public dissent or anything that they see as coming in the way of their status?
Um,
It's a big question because I mean, in some ways, some people say this can help sustain this regime in power if they give way in the sense of like, okay, we'll give them a little bit of freedom, they're not going to say anything, or does it then inspire them to then seek more and not stop at it and therefore drive out the regime? I guess it could go either way. It's a big question that I know, nobody has a magic crystal ball, but as someone who lived in Iran and is a specialist in this field, what do you think?
Um, in terms of social changes that we are witnessing, I have to say the train has left the station. And we might see some social changes, loosening up restrictions, but it's not going to end up here. This movement has definitely political implications. Those who think that it's not going to end up in political change, they are absolutely wrong. Because the forces, because many of the things that people want, many of the expectations that the Gen Z generation, this new generation, has in mind, would not, they would not get to that if the Islamic Republic is still in place, or if it does not go through a massive, deep changes from inside. And if the Islamic Republic goes through a massive fundamental change from within, then that's not the Islamic Republic anymore. So
Exactly.
many people within the system fear that. They fear that this is the beginning of an end. They think that the domino, has started to fall down, and some of them try to justify it and try to own it and say this belongs to us because this is happening because we allowed this to happen. And that's the narrative the Islamic Republic wants to hear from other people, that this is if people are doing this, if the young generation is more active and has less restrictions, this is because what we want. This is because we allow this to happen. But the truth is, those who follow what is happening underneath the society, they understand that this has nothing to do with the government. This is a very massive force underneath the society, and they are opening pathways that my generation was not able to even touch it much faster, much quicker than we thought, for example, 10 years ago. So some people are fighting it to no avail, and some people are joining it. So I think that's one of the struggles for the Islamic Republic, because some of their forces have understood that this is not going to be a battle they would win.
Wow, that's fascinating from the bottom up. Well, thank you so much. That's Omid Memarian. Thank you for helping us make sense of this contrast and give us an idea of where this is all headed.
Thanks for having me, Nega.
You can sign up for our weekly briefing newsletter at iranintl.com/newsletter. We deliver what you need to know with top stories, key analysis, and exclusive reports direct to your inbox. The Eye for Iran podcast series is brought to you by Iran International, your go-to destination for expert news in both Farsi and English. For more, you can head to our dedicated English website at iranintl.com/en.